proposed Wooddale Road Tax Increment Financing District. Roll call, please.
Alderman Catalano.
Here.
Alderman Jacob. Here. Alderman Messina.
Here.
Alderman Sorrentino.
Here.
Alderman Sizmarsky. Here. Alderman E. Wesley.
Here.
Alderman R. Wesley.
Here.
Alderman Woods.
Here.
Mayor Police.
Here. We begin tonight with the public hearing on the proposed Wooddale Road Tax Increment Financing District in accordance with Illinois law. Notice of this public hearing was mailed and published in the Daily Herald newspaper on March 15th, 2018. The City Council adopted an ordinance O-18-009 setting this public hearing and setting the Wooddale Joint Review Committee, JRB, meeting for consideration of the proposed Wooddale Road redevelopment plan and project area and tax increment financing. All notices were then given as required by statute and the city's interested persons registry rules. On April 2nd, 2018, the JRB conducted a public meeting in which it appointed officers and performed other statutory duties, received and reviewed the public record and the redevelopment plan and project for the Wooddale Road redevelopment project area prepared by the city's appointed TIF consultant, S.B. Friedman. The public meeting before the JRB was continued to April 20th, 2018, where the JRB reconvened and continued its review of the public record and the redevelopment plan and the project area, and reviewed the proposed ordinances approving the redevelopment plan and project, designating the project area and adopting tax increment financing for the project area. Questions and comments were received by the Joint Review Committee. At the conclusion of the meeting on April 20th, the JRB found by unanimous vote of 10 members present that the planning documents and proposed ordinances meet the eligibility requirements and objectives of the Tax Increment Financing Act and recommended that the city approve the plan and project, designate the project area and adopt tax increment financing. The JRB then issued its written recommendation and report to the city. The plan and the project, the notices, the ordinances, and the JRB recommendation are all made part of the record of this public hearing. Tonight we'll first have the city's TIF consultants provide a brief summary of the plan and project and the purpose of the ordinances. Mr. Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight we have two representatives from SB Friedman, the TIF consultants who performed the analysis for us. We have Mr. Jeff Dickinson and Mr. Ethan Lassiter. And at this time, I would request that the floor be turned over to them for their presentation.
Okay, if they could state their name for the record.
Again, my name is Ethan Lassiter. I'm with my colleague Jeff Dickinson from SB Friedman. So as Brad said, we were hired by the city to conduct a eligibility study and then later a redevelopment plan for this proposed area. The area shown here is roughly bounded by Grove Street, Center Street to the west, Elmwood Avenue to the east, and the current Metro Railroad line to the south. It consists of both improved and vacant land. Improved generally means land with buildings on it or parking lots or kind of side yards related to those buildings. Vacant land is vacant. It's almost 40 acres, half of which is improved land. Another 5 acres is vacant land, and 11 acres is right-of-way, roads, streets, sidewalks. There are 50 tax parcels, 38 of which are improved and 15 of which are vacant. And there are 25 buildings within the area. So there are different ways of eligibility for both improved land and vacant land. Vacant land has two different possibilities. One uses one-factor tests, which are generally major physical issues with the land. These include being a former quarry, being a dumping site, being subject to chronic flooding. The two-factor test uses a different set of factors. Those are generally more legal or economic. They involve issues with obsolete platting, tax delinquencies, multiple ownerships, a lack of property tax value growth. Improved land uses a separate set of criterion. For a blighted area, you have to have 5 of 13 possible factors. A conservation area uses 3 of those same 13 factors if the area is old enough. In this case, if over half the buildings are 35 years of age or older. So to conduct our eligibility, we do parcel-by-parcel field work, which is mostly documentation and taking photographs of every parcel within this area. We collect and review data from a variety of sources, including a lot of help from the county and from the city. So these include an analysis of property tax values, plans, code information, building age data, municipal records, all from the city, as well as GIS analysis. So for vacant land, we found that the area is eligible, actually under both conditions or both tests, as a one-factor test under flooding and as a two-factor test due to a lack of growth in equalized assessed value, a lack of growth in property value, as well as obsolete platting. For the one-factor flooding test, the city engaged another third-party engineer, and per the engineer, about half the vacant land is within the 100-year floodplain of Salt Creek, but 100% of the vacant land contributes to flooding within that watershed. So that's, per the act, that's essentially the heart of the law. Does it flood, but also, or does it contribute to flooding downstream? So the entirety of the vacant land is eligible per the TIF Act under just this. Also true is that it's eligible using a two-factor test. In this case, that property tax value has declined in 3 of the past 5 years. It's also increased less than, or in this case, declined more than the rate of inflation, CPI, in 3 of the last 5 years. Again, this factor is assessed area-wide, and so is applied to all the vacant land. The last vacant two-factor test is obsolete platting. This is essentially saying, could any single entity or developer buy any one parcel and develop just that parcel to modern real estate standards? And for 60% of the parcels, that's not true. Mostly that's limited to just having a few parcels that are extremely small or narrow in size. They could be irregularly shaped, but it's mostly just about being very small. So for the improved land, we designated it as a conservation area. It qualifies because at least 60% of the 25 buildings are 35 years or older. And the following 5 factors were found to be present and meaningfully distributed. They include a lack of growth in property values, deterioration, presence of structures below minimum code, inadequate utilities, and a lack of community planning. So first off, we can use conservation as a test because at least 15 of the 25 buildings were constructed in 1981 or earlier. Per a lack of growth in EAV or property value. Again, this is only for the improved. The previous one was only for the vacant land, but EAV declined in 3 of 5 year-to-year periods. It increased less than inflation in 3 of the 5 periods. It also grew less than the remainder of the city in 3 of those 5 periods. So essentially, as the city's property tax base changes, the rest of this area is not keeping up with that, and so it's placing a larger tax burden on the remainder of the city. Deterioration was something observed in the field through field work. It's applied to 97% of the improved parcels. Again, this essentially must be more than normal maintenance. It's not a fresh coat of paint. It includes major cracks or crumbling on infrastructure and surfaces. It includes stair stepping in brick or cinder block, cracked foundations, cracked downspouts, things like that. So examples in public right-of-way or kind of private parking surfaces include just cracks, but alligatoring is essentially when cracks get so multiple that they are everywhere. They look a little bit like alligator skin. Stair stepping in brick is actually in this case right next to stairs, but it's a cutout in grouting between bricks that's both a cause of and a symptom of water damage. So per the city's Public Works Department, the utility systems are currently inadequate or don't meet current kind of requirements. So this includes the southeast corner, southeast of Wooddale Road and Commercial Street lacks storm sewer storage. Northwest of Wooddale Road and Commercial Street, which is a large portion of the area, also has insufficient storm sewer. And then the majority of the RPA is served by water mains that are smaller than current code requirements. So those may be updated over time, but are currently not serving the area. all structures were constructed prior to the adoption of the city's current building code. And that doesn't inherently mean they don't meet that, but then we talked to the city, and 80% of total structures do not actually meet current codes. Again, city codes, county codes, fire, building, stormwater, floodplain, all of that. Again, it's meaningfully present and recently distributed throughout the area. And finally, a lack of community planning. So in this case, 40% of the buildings, of those 25 buildings, were constructed prior to the city's first comprehensive plan in 1973. A lack of planning resulted in some adverse outcomes or non-ideal outcomes. The at-grade railroad crossing combined with vehicular traffic, combined with pedestrian traffic, is a little challenging. There's a lack of kind of space for pedestrians, both around Irving Park Road, around Wooddale Road, around the railroad, really. And then 3 of the buildings that were constructed within the FEMA floodplain, which would not normally be followed if it were built today. So these conditions have hindered the ability to attract new investment, and again, this factor is evaluated area-wide. There are a few other required findings and tests per Illinois law. So for the past 5 years, no new construction permits were pulled. There were 4 interior model permits, 1 addition permits. Essentially, we look at permit activity to show that the area has not been subject to substantial private investment or new construction. It has not been subject to new construction, and there's been limited new private investment that has, and even if there has been a little bit, it hasn't changed property value trajectory. I'll take questions right after. There's a discussion section, if that works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Continue, please.
Okay, thank you. A few other required findings and tests. A lack of growth in private investment. Again, we use the permit data combined with property value changes to determine or assess that there has been a lack of growth. The but-for analysis is our finding that redevelopment is challenging, and we do not expect the area to change course, or we do not expect the area to redevelop, but for the designation of this district. And then contiguity is simply the parcels are contiguous. So per the city, we created a redevelopment plan. These focus on a few key objectives, which include development of underutilized sites, facilitating physical improvement of the area, structures and facades, replacement, repair, improvement of public utilities and infrastructure, streetscaping, signage improvements, and then essentially supporting the goals of other and additional plans, including the 2003 comprehensive plan, and then coordinating other resources at the federal, state, and local level. The proposed budget is essentially a cap. It is an amount you can't go above, but it is no guarantee about either how much money will be raised or where you need to spend it, per se. It's more of a guiding tool. So we dump most of the costs into 2 sections: property assembly and site prep costs, as well as cost of construction for public works and improvements. But again, these are more guidelines, and categories can be moved. Per the Act, there is a future land use map. We follow a mixed-use designation to allow for the following land uses within the area: commercial, residential, public-private institutional spaces, parks, community facilities, utilities, and right-of-way. Most notably, out of the major categories, this doesn't include industrial. And again, this doesn't usurp or replace your zoning. So it's not saying that you couldn't do, if you wanted to. It's not saying you couldn't do industrial here. It's saying you couldn't get TIF money to do that. And this also, again, doesn't usurp or replace or change your zoning. It's simply saying what you can use TIF funding for. So that's a review of our eligibility findings and our redevelopment plan. If there were a comment?
Thank you. Brad, anybody else speaking, or just that?
No, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Before we go to questions from the council, we'd like to ask if there's any residents, any public that want to comment on this. Okay. So, Alder Messina, you had your hand up first. Go ahead.
Actually, Google answered it. I had
Okay.
a question on one of the properties, but I know which one it is. I'm good, thank you.
Did he need to be sworn in? Okay. Are there any other council, Alderman Eugene Wesley, yes.
I have a question on the area that we're talking about. How many residents are affected? How many houses?
Go ahead.
There are about 18 to 20. We try to verify that by walking out in the field. So we think there are about 18 apartment units within the area.
I mean residential.
Go ahead,
houses.
Alderman Wesley, for follow-up.
Residential, I'm talking about. I'm not talking
you said
apartment. I'm not
resident.
talking apartment buildings. I'm
Residents.
talking residents.
Uh,
Single-family home.
Hold on one second. Mr. Wilson.
To the best of my knowledge, 3.
3 single-family?
There might be a 4th one, but 3 for sure.
Okay.
Alderman
Can I
Wesley,
do
follow-up?
follow-up?
Yes, go ahead.
So these apartment units or residential houses, single-family homes, will they be able to, Mayor, maybe you can answer, are they going to be able to get TIF money to fix up their house if that's the case? Or apartment
Who can
building?
answer that one? Jeff, is that, okay, go ahead.
Hi, Jeff Dickinson, SB Friedman. Ethan and I worked on this together. Legally, yes, they could come in and ask for assistance. The interesting, it's a decision by the council at a subsequent date how to spend the TIF funds. I don't know all the facts here, but generally speaking, TIF funding goes to projects that have the potential to make a transformative change, and so you collectively would have to conclude that that particular project has the potential, in part, there's a lot of decisions you have to make. One of them would be, is this an important enough project to warrant public investment? But it would be legal for them to ask, it would be legal for you to give it to them, I guess.
So it is legal?
Yes. Pat, you may disagree, but
Okay,
that's the way
thank
it
you.
works. It's a rehab project that you couldn't build a new house with TIF money, to be clear. You can't pay for new construction, but you could fix your house up theoretically.
No,
Alderman Wesley, go ahead.
but they could refab the house, like some of those houses might be affected from flooding, and they might have to bring their houses up to standard to meet the floodplain.
They could
So
come
they
in and
could
ask, and
apply
that
for
could be, the
TIF
council could
money for
decide to help
Okay.
fund that, that's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Alderman Messina?
Are we able to actually purchase those homes?
Land acquisition is
Dixon.
an eligible cost,
Okay.
yes. So the city could do that, and you could use TIF funds to do it.
Alderman Sismarski?
The current
Yeah.
plan, I'm sorry, one more thing, Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead.
The current plan doesn't contemplate land acquisition, and so if you need, if, again, in the view of the council, the strategic need was there, I believe an amendment would be required, to be straight about that. Under the way the plan is written today, you're not allowed to buy people's houses. You couldn't displace people. I guess if they don't live there, you could buy the house, but you couldn't displace a homeowner without making a change to the plan, if that makes sense.
Go ahead, follow-up, Alderman Messina?
So relocation, could that be part of the plan?
That's correct.
Okay.
So yeah, you could be a friendly conversation, and you could have helped move people out and then buy their house, but you couldn't just
Okay,
move them in a more aggressive manner, shall we say.
okay, thanks.
All right, Alderman Sismarski?
Yeah, I'm looking at this TIF district here. I know I see 8 homes. One was a former alderman, the other ones are in this area. The ones along Wooddale Road, some of those are not, if I'm not mistaken, the ones you have where the outline along Wooddale Road there is, are they all incorporated? Because some of those are unincorporated homes. So does this TIF work for unincorporated? It only works for this boundary limits, city boundary limits, correct?
Correct.
We believe all the parcels
Go
are
ahead.
in the city.
All
That
parcels
was Based
are-
on our
I'm sorry.
research, so. in county
Alderman
data.
Sismarski?
All
go ahead.
parcels are in the city boundary?
That's correct. You could not TIF
Not
parcels in the
unincorporated?
county. That's,
Okay.
you're correct in your question.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. There being no further public comment, the city council is scheduled to vote on the ordinances approving the Wooddale Road Tax Increment Financing District redevelopment plan and project designating the project area and adopting tax increment financing at our next city council meeting, May 17, 2018, and upon adoption and execution of the ordinances, the city manager will publish the final version of the documents and place it on file in the city clerk's office. I'll now entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Second. We have a motion, a second. Roll call.
Am I doing it? Okay, Alderman Catalano?
Yes.
Alderman Jacob?
Yes.
Alderman Messina?
Yes.
Alderman Sorrentino?
Yes.
Alderman Sismarski?
Yes.
Alderman E. Wesley?
Yes.
Alderman R. Wesley? Alderman Wood?
Yes. Yes.
And that passes. Oh, yes.
Mayor.
Oh, yes.
No one can hear it over there.
Oh, okay, guess in here.
Oh,
All right. Thank you.
are you gonna call the meeting to order?
No.
7:50?
Is there a motion to adjourn?
You may make a motion to adjourn?
We already did. I made a motion, so
Listen instead of talking.
If the kids could now step forward.
Okay.
No.
Who's lucky enough to sit in my chair?
Mayor? Mayor?
It's all yours.
Or should we bring the treasurer up? Leave him there? Don't look like the big kid.
Is she gonna vote for you? Yes. You know what you could say, she will be asking you, okay, what are you gonna do for me? To help me out in my area. You're not playing PlayStation, calling your Excited? So what do you know? What other question do you have?
We'll push it for you to talk.
Okay, where's that?
Es caso cerrado.
We're going to, so this is where we're starting. We did this part, the big legal thing that we had to do. So now, they'll call the meeting to order, they're gonna take the roll again. They're gonna, so when it comes to me or you, you're gonna say here, the mic's on, the green light says the mic's on. Then we're gonna do the pledge of allegiance, we're gonna approve the minutes. Then they'll call for citizens to be heard, written communique, then the mayor's gonna do the proclamation. Over here, this is me. So the mayor's gonna call, committee chairman of planning and zoning, present the reports, but we don't have any reports, so you're just gonna say, no reports, Mayor. And when they're doing other things, you feel free to, if you wanna make the motion to approve something or second it. Where's your sheet?
Do I have to read anything?
You're gonna have to read anything, but you're Randy, you're fine, okay. So, public health safety.
All right, I'd like to call the city council meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor's gonna.
She's got one.
Well, you gotta call us, Shirley, we gotta.
Call the finance and administration. When they what you say is they used to have one report
Who's Catalano?
And you'll sit and you do this. This is my one.
Here.
That's it.
I just read that.
I know.
Yeah, just read that. Say, I have one report,
Yeah,
Mayor.
they'll answer to it.
And then you'll read this.
Yeah.
I'll help you. Do you know what this says?
Here.
Alderman Akers?
Here.
Alderman Larson?
Here.
Alderman Zima?
Here.
Alderman Rocha?
Here.
Alderman Vitello?
Here.
Alderman Escobar?
Here.
Alderman, City Clerk?
Here.
Ward 4. Alderman Lennon?
Here.
Good. Alderman May?
Here.
Alderman Serpa?
By power of attorney, Paula is here.
Oh, okay, well, I can't see this far.
Hi, Paul.
Alderman Bueno?
Here. I declare a quorum. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
That's the pledge of allegiance we've had in a while.
I need an approval of the,
Approval of the council minutes of April 19th.
I need approval of the council minutes of April 19th.
I make a motion, I approve.
I make Do we have a second? I second.
Second?
Second.
Say all in favor?
All in favor?
Say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Next, do any citizens wish to be heard on matters not listed on the agenda?
Do any citizens wish to be heard on the matters not on the agenda?
We have no written communiques,
We have no written communiques.
so I'm going to read a proclamation for student government.
Okay. Proclamation of Student Government Day. Whereas the education of our youth is important to the future of our city, state, nation, and whereas teaching students to be involved and knowledgeable about local government is something we should always strive to be doing, and whereas students from Westview Elementary School learned about local government today from city officials. Whereas we wish to honor the students, teachers, and city officials who participated in this day. Now therefore, I, Nunziato Police, do hereby proclaim Thursday, May 3rd, 2018 as Student Government Day in Wooddale, Illinois.
Thank you. Next. Next, you need to read this one right here. Is that big enough for you? You want it larger?
Actually, I have two.
Oh, you have it? Perfect.
Arbor Day Proclamation. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas the holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed at various times of the year throughout the nation and world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil due to wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, reduce greenhouse gas emissions and provide for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper products and wood for homes and businesses. And whereas trees beautify our community, increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of the business areas. And whereas trees, where properly planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Annunziato Police, Mayor of the City of Wooddale, do hereby proclaim May 3rd, 2018 as Arbor Day in the City of Wooddale, and I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Dated this 3rd day of May, 2018.
Next, we have a short video from DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference.
Next, we have a short video
Video from DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference.
Mayors and Managers Conference.
This is Protect My Town, a public affairs program featuring mayors from DuPage County and surrounding suburbs, talking about issues important to everyone who lives and works here. Hello and welcome to Protect My Town. We'll be introducing you to our panel of mayors in just a moment. I'm Don Weiss, your host. Today we're talking about the Local Government Distributive Fund. And despite the cumbersome name, it's something every taxpayer should care about. The state's budget deficit is threatening the $1.2 billion fund that cities and towns rely on for basic services. For nearly 50 years, Illinois' Local Government Distributive Fund, also called LGDF, has played a vital role for local municipalities. It pays for essential services, things like police and fire, streets and sewers, and snow plowing. Here's how it works. The state collects income taxes from Illinois workers. Through a formula based on population, a certain percentage of the revenue gets dispersed back to every city and town. Ultimately, those dollars play a crucial role in municipal operating budgets. But with another state budget shortfall looming, Springfield is looking to take more than $120 million in LGDF funds. And mayors are urging Springfield to resist any attempts to take the money. Municipalities, which have to balance their budgets every year, have made tough choices in recent years, reducing personnel, cutting services, and controlling spending. This comes amid rising municipal costs, particularly public safety pensions, and calls for a property tax freeze which will limit revenue. While they support fixing the state's financial woes, mayors say that Springfield's power play doesn't fix the state's problems, but merely shifts the responsibility, ultimately, onto local taxpayers. Now, you, the viewer, have the ability to let lawmakers know how you feel about this important issue, and we'll let you know how to do that during our show. But let me introduce you now to our distinguished panel of mayors. We have Mayor Martin Tully from Downers Grove. We have Mayor Kevin Burns from Geneva, and Mayor Glenn Ryback from Wadsworth. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming in and talking about this important issue today. Mayor Tully, let's start with you. For your community, your municipality in Downers Grove, what does the LGDF mean to your budget? Essentially, how much money in revenue are we talking about that comes through the LGDF funding to the village of Downers Grove?
Sure, and thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about this very important issue to all our constituents. For us, our share of the Local Government Distributive Fund in Downers Grove is about $4.5 million currently, which represents about 10% of our general fund, which is the fund that we use to provide basic services to our community. This is the operating fund. It provides things I call sirens and snowplows, the important things that people count on every single day. Police, fire, and public works.
Right, right. Mayor Burns, let's talk about Geneva now, LGDF. In terms of the overall makeup of your budget, how much are we talking about that comes through this LGDF revenue source to Geneva?
LGDF in Geneva represents approximately 20% of our general operating fund. Approximately $2 million a year we rely on from our friends. It's huge. It's huge. And any portion of that being removed requires significant consideration and I would argue significant pain to our residents as well.
And basic services, as Mayor Tully just mentioned.
Absolutely. It's invested in what makes our community special. And when you remove any portion of that money, then we risk the reputation of our community being hurt simply because of lack of services.
Mayor Ryback, let's talk about Wadsworth now up in the Lake County area. But LGDF is critical, I'm sure, to your municipality, your board, and your constituents. Let's talk about that.
Similar to Geneva, about 18.2% of our income, $361,000 is what we received in the last year. We use that to maintain our 33 miles of roadway, plowing, resurfacing, and so forth.
We've heard in all three of these cases, in all three of your communities, and I know that the example is similar elsewhere, these are basic services we're talking about. These are the things that I think your residents see. They like to see squad cars coming down the street patrolling. They want to have that snowplow coming in when it's necessary. And if it doesn't appear, that's when you gentlemen and your staff and your other elected officials, you get the phone calls at the City Hall, right?
That's correct.
That it's critical, right? Well, I want to make sure that our viewers know that you can go to protectmytown.us, where you can contact your lawmakers directly to let them know how you feel about Springfield's attempts to cut local funding to your communities. And as these mayors know, it's critical. What's also important, mayors, I think you'd all agree, is you have to balance your budget every year.
Yes.
You cannot do as perhaps the state of Illinois has done and not deal with it, save it for another time. So these 20%, 18%, all this money we heard about are real dollars and real services. So Mayor Tully, if you had to go to your village commissioners and say, we're going to have to sustain a 10% cut in the LGDF funds for those basic services, what would that mean to the Village of Downers Grove?
Sure, for the Village of Downers Grove, a 10% cut in our portion of LGDF would be about $450,000 less each year. And unlike prior situations where maybe the economy went south during the Great Recession and we had to account for a one-time hit until things got better, removing that from our budget every single year would be a huge impact. A $450,000 loss in revenue that we rely upon to provide basic services like police, fire, public works, code services, community development, and economic development for our community would be a big deal. And why? Because most municipalities are made up of people. Our operating budget is probably supports 77% personnel. So to take $450,000 out of our operating budget means a big reduction in personnel. Those are the people that provide those services that you mentioned that our residents count on and expect every single day.
You mentioned economic development. I think that's critical too. We're talking about, you said sirens and snowplows and such, but economic development, that's growth in your communities as well. Mayor Burns, talk about the impact to Geneva. A 10% cut would be huge to your budget because people would feel it immediately, and these services that are provided would impact your residents in your community.
That's true, and I would echo what Mayor Tully said as well. With respect to Geneva, a 10% cut is approximately $250,000. It doesn't sound like a heck of a lot until you dive into that budget and realize what needs to be eliminated. And the moment you discuss what services need to be either suspended or eliminated, whether it be economic development, historic preservation, roads, police, fire, then those discussions become very serious. And to Mayor Tully's point, it's a compounding problem. You know, my feeling is the era of collaboration with our friends in Springfield has gone from collaborative to now conscription of local municipalities' success in not just managing their money, but investing their money wisely. And so from an elected official's perspective, and I believe my citizens and my colleagues on the council would agree with this, we're frustrated with the state's inability to understand how well we're doing locally and how they can learn from us.
And those citizens are also the constituents of the elected representatives and senators who are going to have to cast very key, important votes on this very issue that we're talking about. Mayor Ryback, I would imagine same issues dealing with that. What would a 10% cut mean to the Village of Wadsworth?
Our road program runs on a 15-year cycle, and it's about $800,000 a year to maintain that program. Losing those funds would stretch the program to a point where some of the pavement would deteriorate prematurely in advance of that 15-year cycle of repair.
And every citizen, every homeowner wants to know, when is our road going to be resurfaced?
That's right, the calls come.
They call,
yes.
They love to hear when it's going to happen. A little bit of pain for that will go a long way once the road is resurfaced, because that's critical infrastructure. You don't want to drive down a road in a community that you know it could be better than that.
Exactly right. In fact, our residents supported a referendum to increase their sales tax by another penny in the last year or two, because that was important to them. So.
And again, as we're talking now, remember that your citizens, the people who live in the greater suburban area here, rely on those dollars because they originated in your community.
Absolutely.
Those are income tax, typically income tax dollars that your citizens earned, worked, got a paycheck, sent that money to Springfield with the understanding from many years ago, decades ago, that that money was going to come back. And I think if we're not answering that, if Springfield isn't answering that end of the promise, that end of the equation, then there's something wrong there. There's an imbalance. Would you agree that that's something you have to address?
It's absolutely something you have to address, because you go back in history and realize that there was a trade-off. The trade-off was that municipalities would receive a share of the state income tax in exchange for giving up their ability to have their own local income tax. So we gave up that right to collect that money directly from our residents and put it back into our own communities in reliance upon the state doing it and returning it to us. And now diverting that money away from where it was intended to go is a big problem. And people need to understand that.
And to that point, are residents understanding this? Do people know what LGDF is, or do they really key more on those basic services that LGDF is funding? So maybe there's a little bit of a gap in just the basic understanding of what we're talking about here and why this is so critical.
That's right, and it was part of the 1970 Illinois Constitutional Convention, which established what you're referring to, Mayor. Yeah.
That's right.
Mayor Burns, a lot of people calling, and when they don't see the snowplow coming quickly, I mean, you can't get that quickly enough, especially people who have to get to jobs, right?
Of course, exactly.
When you have a bad snow like that.
And we welcome the phone calls, no question about it, because it provides me, and I'm certain my colleagues, an opportunity to explain to them in great detail. You know, whether it's called LGDF, whether it's called money from Springfield, doesn't matter to the average citizen. And I consider myself and my family as average citizens. What matters is, does the agreement we have with the state of Illinois for nearly a half a century jeopardize our operations moving forward? The short answer is yes, it does. So how do we convince our citizens to contact their state representatives to say that what you're attempting to do is unfair and it's going to impact us directly?
Well, let's talk about that call to action. Mayor,
Yes.
you just mentioned that. Mayor Tully, what would you like to make sure that your residents of Downers Grove, your general region there that you represent, and the counties beyond, make sure that they know what is the one thing that they need to know critical to the LGDF issue and
Sure.
really the crisis that you could potentially be facing?
In addition to understanding what LGDF is and why it needs to come back into the communities that it originates from, in addition to understanding what the impact would be on the level of services within the community if we took this kind of a hit going forward, I think that residents also need to understand that there's a fallacy to what I've heard repeated at some levels, that municipalities need to share the pain of fixing the state's budget. First of all, this will not fix the state's budget because the state has a spending problem, not a revenue problem. So taking our money isn't going to solve it. But more importantly, what they don't understand, and Mayor Burns mentioned this earlier, is that municipalities have already gone through a great deal of pain since the recession and have made significant cuts. Since the Great Recession, for example, the Village of Downers Grove has reduced headcount by 73 positions, or 20% of our headcount has gone down. We've eliminated programs, DARE programs, other programs already, community policing in our town, in order to make sure that our budget is balanced and we are living within our means. So to say that we need to share the pain, I would flip that around and make sure that residents understand that what really needs to happen is, as Mayor Burns mentioned, Springfield needs to learn from municipalities, and they need to figure this out on their own and not on the backs of municipalities.
I want to thank our panel of mayors very much. From Downers Grove, Mayor Martin Tully, Kevin Burns from Geneva, and Glenn Ryback from Wadsworth. Gentlemen, thank you very much. It's a critical issue, and we hope that we've helped educate your residents and residents of our region as to the LGDF issue and the importance that it presents to our communities. And a reminder for our viewers to go to protectmytown.us. Let your voice be heard on this very important issue. My thanks to the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference for its support of this program. Again, thank you very much, mayors, and thank you for joining us as well. We'll see you next time on Protect My Town.
Thank you for your patience during the video. Please go to our city website and help us protect our funds by clicking on the website protectmytown.usa.
Next, we have a mayoral appointment to police and fire commissioners. Just read that right there.
Next, we have a mayor appointment, police and fire commissioners, appointment of Joseph Menard for a 3-year term commencing on May 3rd, 2018 and expiring on April 30th, 2021.
Do I have a motion?
Do I have an emotion?
Yes. Yes.
Do I have a second?
Do I have a second?
I second.
Roll call, please.
Roll call, please.
Who makes this?
Yes.
You'll get a chance to do it.
Yes.
Alderman Serpa.
Yes.
Alderman May.
Yes.
Alderman King.
Yes.
Alderman Rocha. City Clerk Rocha.
Yes.
Alderman Rocha.
Yes.
Alderman Zima.
Yes.
Alderman Larson.
Yes.
Alderman Akers.
Yes.
Alderman Belt. Belson.
Yes.
Mayor Botello.
Yes. And that passes.
Attorney Escobar.
Yes.
City Treasurer.
And that passes.
And that passes.
Next, one quick item for those residents that are concerned about the White Oaks meeting that was supposed to happen, I believe, on May 17th. That meeting is going to be postponed to June 7th. White Oaks meeting, June 7th for those residents that are watching, and we'll put that on the website. So those residents that are concerned about this will get that information.
Next, city manager.
Next, city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I have one item. Please join us in welcoming the following new businesses to Wooddale. Lucky Way Express is located at 858 North Sivert Drive and is a freight forwarding company. Cover Up Window Wells is located at 325 Benoris Drive and is a window well cover fabricator. Romino's Woodwork is located at 808 North Central Avenue and is cabinet making shop and office. This includes my report.
Thank you for the report. Yes?
Can you give us an update on the clock tower? How much does it cost to?
Good, Ms. Manager.
To the city manager?
Yes.
Miss Manager?
Yes.
May you please repeat the question?
Can you give us an update on the clock tower and how much it cost?
The clock tower is on a schedule and it costs expensive.
But we did receive almost 500,000 grant free money.
And we did receive almost 5,000 grant, 500,000 grant in money.
Next, ask if there's no objection, we have one item on the consent agenda. If there's no objection, we have one item on the consent agenda. I need a motion to approve.
If there is no motion,
Objection
if there's no objection,
on the consent agenda, we need a motion.
On the consented agenda, can we have an motion to approve?
I'll make
So
a motion
moved.
to approve.
Do I have a second?
We have a second?
Second.
Do we have a
Yes, you have more, now we need a roll call.
roll call?
Alderman Bueno.
Yes.
Alderman Serpa.
Yes.
Alderman May.
Yes.
Alderman Pinto.
Yes.
City Clerk Rocha.
Yes.
City Attorney Escobar.
Yes.
City Manager Rocha.
Yes.
Alderman Zima.
Yes.
Alderman Larson.
Yes.
Alderman Akers.
Yes.
Alderman Belsick.
Yes.
Mayor Botello.
Yes.
And City Treasurer Alonso.
Yes.
Is that,
We have Mayor
no,
Botello.
no, yes. Being that there's only one item, we're good. We don't have to make the second motion.
Okay. Next, committee chairman report. Oh, you know what? Before you go on, I'd like to hear from the council what they would like to see in the future for Wooddale, and then ask them. I would like to know what the council would like to see in the city for the future.
I would like to see what the council would like to see for the future of Wooddale.
Maybe start with the treasurer.
We will start with the treasurer.
What would you like to see happen in Wooddale? Is it on?
I would like that we would return the garden near the railroad, the train tracks, because I like that place, and we tore it down 2 years ago, and I want to see it again.
Very nice.
Say thank you.
Thank you.
Start at the other end.
Or start at that. Start at that end.
We'll start with, that next is Omar.
He was looking.
I would like to see more restaurants because it would make more money for the city.
Thank you.
No, not you, Sonny. We don't want to hear from you.
I think we should have a Starbucks near school because some teachers would need some coffee in the morning.
I didn't set her up. Later, dude.
Corporate sponsor?
Next.
I wish for a movie theater to be in our city because so we don't have to go to another town or city to watch a movie.
Next.
Thank you. Gotta say thank you.
I would like there to be more events so the town can get together more often.
Thank you.
More events.
I would like to see more churches in Wooddale.
He wants to be a priest.
Can I do another comment?
Yes.
Yes, please.
When do I submit my local legal bill to payment?
It's expensive.
When do I
Go
get
to the
to
other side,
submit
then
my
you
legal bill for payment?
Start at the other end.
It should be pro bono.
Julia.
I would like to have more parks for children.
More parks.
Next.
I would like to have a sky zone in Wooddale.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's indoor trampoline park.
No.
I think everything's good the way it is.
I like your
Oh,
I think there should be a few more homes so we could have more people move into Wooddale.
Very nice. Say thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
would like less charges on the carnival games for the Prairie Fest.
Prairie Fest Committee.
We will talk to the Prairie Fest Committee.
Now, what would you like to see?
I would like to have more parks so kids could be more active, because now with the games like Fortnite and Call of Duty, they're too busy playing with games and not with the parks.
Very nice.
Okay. So you say, next committee chairman reports? And then say planning and zoning?
Next committee chairman reports,
Planning and zoning?
planning, zoning, and building committee.
Planning and zoning?
No report, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public health and safety?
Public health and safety.
Public health and safety has no report, Mayor, however,
Thank you.
would like to be recognized when it comes to other business.
Thank you.
Public works?
Public works.
No.
No report, Mayor.
Okay, finance and administration?
Finance and administration.
I have one report, Mayor. Municipal application. Numeral 2018.
It is. It's, yeah.
Let her say it again.
Municipal aggregation. Numeral 2018.
Perfect. We'll pass it on to Brad.
No, good.
No, there's no motion yet.
Could Mr. Wilson please give an update?
Can Mr. Wilson please give an update?
I'm not.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Proceed.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, before you this evening, we have the results from the NIMEC bid. We sent those out a little after 3 o'clock this afternoon. As we've done in the past, it's an unfortunate situation, but the bids are only good for 24 hours. So we have to put the item on the agenda and then send out the information as soon as we receive it. The bids were due this afternoon at 1 p.m. I had a call around 1:30 with representatives from NIMEC, one of whom is here this evening to answer any more finite questions. The results of the bid and the recommendation that was sent out was to agree to the 24-month pricing for MC Squared on the renewal of the municipal electric aggregation program. However, there's some hesitance to the 24. Certainly the 12-month pricing is also very favorable to the city. Based on the estimates of the 24 months, I believe it was going to save the resident in the first year approximately $50 per year. Household, approximately $50 per year versus going back to the ComEd rate. So if the council would like to continue the program, we would need to approve the ordinance that was placed in the packet and select a vendor and a term to get that ball rolling. Legal has actually already received the contract, is reviewing it, and since it's the same company as last year, it should be a pretty easy process to get through. So.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion?
Thank you. Do I have an emotion?
Is there a question? Is there a question?
Yes. Is there a question?
Okay.
Want to
Question?
make a motion? No questions.
So,
Second.
all right, we have a motion and a second.
We have an emotion and a second.
What is the motion for, 12 months or 24 months?
What's the emotion for 12 months
Or 24?
or 24 months?
Right. Would that be yours?
Well, if you were the first motion.
I want to make the motion for 12 months. I'm worried the price will go down more after 12 months.
Okay, does the seconder agree?
Is there a second or an agree?
No, does the seconder agree? There was a second. necessary?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any other questions?
We have an emotion and then a second. Are there any questions?
Yeah, go ahead, Carly.
Omar?
12 months?
Yes.
Isn't staff recommendation 24 months?
Yes, it is, but we can choose either 12 or 24.
Yes, it is, but we could choose either 12 or 24.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Emma?
Any other questions? Anybody? Another question?
Is there any other questions?
Okay.
She had a question.
Yes.
Or a comment.
We want to do 12 months because it won't save us much more money going to 24 months.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Roll call, please.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Larson,
Here.
Alderman Akers,
Here.
Alderman Belzak,
Here.
Alderman Zima,
Yes.
Alderman Tinkle,
No.
Alderman May,
Yes.
Alderman Bueno,
Yes.
City Treasurer Alonso,
Yes.
Alderman Serpa,
Yeah.
City Clerk Roach,
Yes.
City Attorney Escobar,
Yes.
and Mayor.
Yes. That passes.
Nice job. We just saved everybody $54 a year.
Next, under other business, airport noise.
Next, under other business, airport noise report.
At the ONCC meeting, Wooddale is one of 2 communities that was added to the new Fly Quiet Committee.
Does that conclude your report?
Does that include your report?
Yes.
Okay, next.
Stormwater Commission.
Stormwater Commission report.
I want to thank the people that cleaned Salt Creek. That's the end of the report.
Thank you.
Next,
Approval,
approval of list of bills. Say point of order.
point of order.
Good job. That'll teach him.
Approval.
Sorry, Paul.
How come? Okay, that's right, do approval list of bills first.
Approval of list of bills.
I have one report, Mayor. List of bills from May 3rd, 2018.
This is a big amount.
This is a big amount.
$402,400
$402,400
and 94 cents.
and 94 cents.
That is my motion.
That is my motion.
Do I have a second?
Second. Second.
Any questions?
Any questions on the bills? Omar?
Good job.
Itasca Banking Trust. Itasca Banking Trust.
That was a check.
Alone.
Wait, $6,357.
Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Wilson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The amount that's on the list of bills this evening for the $6,357.20 is the interest payable on the amount that we've borrowed against the line of credit. It was a $2 million line of credit. We've currently borrowed $829,200. So this is the interest payment on that amount from March 1st of 2018 through May 31st, 2018.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Omar?
How much did we pay during the total interest on the loan?
Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a second payment of interest on this loan. The total amount to date is $11,125.10.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Look the other way, anybody? All right, we have a motion, we have a second, right? Do we have a second? We had the second, right? No, we did have the motion.
And there was a second?
Okay,
Right.
okay. Roll call, please.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Bueno?
Yes.
Alderman Serpa?
Yes.
Alderman May?
Yes.
Alderman Lennon?
Yes.
Alderman Dulcet?
Yes.
Alderman Akers?
Yes.
Alderman Larson?
Yes.
Alderman Zima?
Yes.
Treasurer Alonso?
Yes.
City Manager Roca?
Yes.
City Clerk Roca?
Yes.
City Attorney Escobar?
Yes.
Mayor McCollum?
Yes.
And that passes.
And that passes.
Next, we have other business. And
Next, we have other business.
Okay. I'm so glad I didn't, I was zoned out there for a minute because I just received a text from Alderman Serpa, and she's really under the weather, and she apologizes for not being here with her fellow councilmen, and wanted to congratulate each and every one of you and tell you what a fine job you're doing on behalf of the citizens of Wooddale. And there is one other issue that's upsetting Alderman Serpa. Hopefully we can put it to rest this evening. Hold on one second. I want to read exactly what she said.
Do you have a Kindle?
Yes, I do. Mini Kindle. Alderman Serpa, over the past weekend, had some conversations with her friends, and their grandmas and grandpas were all together, and it was a real great family event. And then they overheard that some of the grandmas and some of the grandpas, they can't pay for their medicine, and they can't pay for their food, and they're eating cat food. And she said, I don't believe this. So they went to the local pharmacy and asked a general question to the pharmacist: do seniors tend to come to the counter with cans of cat food besides other goods? And the pharmacist says, yes. We've noticed recently there's been a lot of cat food. So the girls and the boys, they said, well, you know what? My grandma and my grandpa ain't never eaten cat food. So what Alderman Serpa was recommending, and was kind enough to send this over to me, she understands there's a group in DuPage County that brings food to 50 grandmas and grandpas in Wooddale 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year. And it's a fresh, hot meal. But the funding for this group is dwindling, like all of our other organizations. So what Alderman Serpa's asked me to do was to make a motion to this council to donate $5,000 to the DuPage Senior Citizens Council for the primary use of Meals on Wheels. That is Alderman Serpa's motion.
it's not an agenda item. Mr. Bond?
Where do you hear this, Paula?
It's not an agenda, so it will be referred to the appropriate committee, and it could come to the council in a future date. And again, what's the status of my bail?
All right, well, Alderman Serpa just said she's really not understanding all of the politics. All she wants to know is to be sure, because she herself marched for meals this year and walked up to the doors and handed grandmas and grandpas their meals. And they smiled ear to ear. So whenever this committee, or whatever this political stuff is, just get the 5,000 to the senior council. Thank you for your time from Alderman Serpa. Let's hear it for Alderman Serpa.
Thank you.
And before we go to adjournment, number one, on behalf of the city council, the staff, thank you to the kids for taking the time to learn about government. I heard you guys were on a tour. I believe Alderman Woods gave a very nice speech. And thank you to the teachers, Mrs. Wickenheim and Mrs. Miner, the other teachers that came in. Thank you very much. Alderman Woods, you were at the, maybe you want to say a couple words, you were at the field trip?
Please don't.
Such love up here on the council. See, young ones, that's what I was talking about, everybody agreeing on stuff.
You're down there so low.
No, I'm just thankful to be part of it. It's really a pleasure to have the kids every year and watch them engage in some small debate when they come to the council chambers. We had some lively conversation, right, agreeing about roads and parks and different things. I'm pretty amazed at how engaged they are and how much, what a good understanding they have of what's going on in the city. So thank you all, and you should all be applauded.
That's a good change. That's a good change. We need a motion to adjourn now.
We need a motion to adjourn now.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
We're adjourned.
We're adjourned.
Thank you for coming out.
Thank you for coming out.
Ah.